Well, I've got the tape pulled off up here, and I like the way this looks. Of course, I was actually going to try and get one coat of Awlwood primer down on the teak rails this morning. This whole week they said there was going to rain, and so far no rain. Beautiful, no clouds in the sky as I came left the house this morning, and of course I get to the boat and it's cloudy. So I think I'm going to hold off on putting on a coat this morning, see if this little shower comes through. Maybe at lunchtime try and put one on before rain comes tomorrow. Really want to try and get at least one coat of the primer on, and then hopefully at least 1 or 2 coats of the Awlwood over the next couple days. The key is I got to get the Awlwood MA clear protected on top of the primer within 24 hours of its initial coat. So I'm under the gun a little bit.
Give the interruption, everybody, but my wife and I do videos every single week about our lifestyle living aboard and refitting our classic sailboat. If this is the kind of content you think you'd find interesting, do us a favor, share it with others, give it a like, click on that subscribe button, and click on the little bell notification. That way you'll be told anytime we upload new content. Let me get back to the video. Everybody, good morning again. It's the next day. I've been down on the boat a lot this week, even during the week before work. And I've come down again today, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting a little bit more of the Awlwood primer down on the tow rails. I'm trying to take advantage of the time when it's cool, when it doesn't look like it's going to rain. I need a good 4 to 6 hours for this stuff to cure enough so that rain won't bother it. So let me show you where I'm going to start today.
So I went ahead and started over here on this raised part of the cap rail and tow rail on the port side. I only did about a 6-foot section. In the event it happens to rain, I won't have a lot of work to redo. Well, good morning. It's early the next morning. I got that piece primed yesterday, and this morning I'm going to go ahead and sand behind the stanchions, and I'm going to try and get this at least prepped and primed before, hopefully before there's any weather.
From the cockpit looking forward, you can see where the primer is on the left there. It obviously needs to be sanded. It was done yesterday, so you can see a little bit of dew on it right now as well, but the idea here is to sand that smooth, and that creates a chemical bond between that and the first layer of Awlwood Clear Gloss MA, Awlwood MA Clear Gloss.
So the next day as I was back on the boat, it was really just a matter of preparing the surface. I used a small piece of 120 grit sandpaper by hand, and I sanded behind each of the stanchions just to make sure it was down to the raw teak. I then followed that up with a cotton towel, dipped in a little bit of acetone, and rubbed all of the teak tow rail. And I did that around the jib sheet and even under that track a little bit, just to be sure that there was no contaminants or oil from touching it on top of the actual surface of the wood.
On the port side, I've wiped the entire tow rail down with acetone. I had sanded this previously and just kind of came up and touched up some of the sanding right behind where the stanchions connect. And you can kind of see as I walk toward the back of the boat here, this is the spot where I primed yesterday, but it looks like they're getting ready to work on the stanchion rails back there, so I'm going to go forward rather than backward. Well, if I can get it done, I'll also do the starboard side.
So now I'm just going to start applying the actual primer finish. It's really kind of interesting. I think I've mentioned in one of the earlier videos when we were doing the Awlwood MA on the boom, just how thin the actual primer material is. It's the consistency of water or paint thinner almost. So it's very easy to go on, it's very easy to drip, it soaks in really well. I'm actually applying this with a foam brush. I'm not a fan of using foam brushes for finish, and I did some testing with these foam brushes and dipped them in acetone to be sure they were the material that was not going to disintegrate with this kind of chemical, what's in the primer essentially. So I'm using the foam brush, I'm dipping it into the wood and applying it, and I think right here as I'm going to the front of the actual jib track, you can see just how good it looks as it's wet. It soaks in pretty quick, so it doesn't stay like this for more than about 15 or 20 minutes. Definitely soaks in and gets a bit lighter for sure. So it's kind of funny, as I was painting this primer on the tow rail, Michael, the owner of the boatyard, kind of came by and he just stopped for a minute and he kind of had his hands in his pocket and said, "Oh, it's looking good." And he started to walk off, and he stopped and he leaned backwards and just said, "Hey, be careful you don't drop any of that finish down on our nice new paint job." It's kind of funny because I did not tape this off, and I was a little bit worried about that. As a matter of fact, you can see in this part of the video, I have this, this white sort of cotton towel shoved into my pocket, and the whole reason behind that was so that if I did drip a little bit on the inside of the deck right there, or even on the outside, there's a chance it could have dripped on the top part of the fiberglass above the rub rail. It allowed me to wipe it down real quick as I was going. It's actually one of the downsides of using the foam brushes. They tend to absorb some of that finish up above the tip where you're applying the finish, and then when you put a little pressure on it, it sort of disperses out and you have to thin it out. So I made some pretty good progress. I actually went all the way down the starboard side to the boarding gate, but I didn't go beyond that because it looked like they were going to do some work on the stainless steel rails.
So I'd say mission accomplished. We went ahead and finished putting the Awlwood MA primer on the tow rail all the way up the port side. Forgive my shadow. It's still early morning. And I decided to do something a little different up here. Let me kind of show you. So I think I'm going to go right to the edge of the bow pulpit, but I don't think I'm going to put Awlwood MA up there. If I'm standing on that, I think I want it to be very grippy, if that's a word. And I'm afraid that it may not be if it's covered with Awlwood MA, which is a high gloss finish. Ooh, I see a little spot I missed. Darn it. I got a touch-up spot right there, but as we go down the starboard tow rail, we've got primer on this all the way up to this spot right here. So I stopped on the tow rail back there just because the fabricators are working back here to put the new stern rails in. I think I mentioned this in earlier videos. We spent a lot of time kind of planning. But if you look down here, you can see this large piece of stainless that is curved around here sitting on top of the cap rail. The purpose of that is it's going to be raised about 24 inches or so above that rail. It's going to follow the contour and the lines of the boat, and he is going to be welding stanchions that go down through the top of the cap rail and screw down into the actual tow rail. So the good news is things have been progressing very slow on that front. I'm glad to see they're doing work, and I don't want to put a wet coat of primer on it that prevents them from maybe moving forward today. So I don't want to get in the way of that. Well, good Friday morning, everybody. Back at the boat again this morning. There's been a lot of work going on this week in little tiny bite-sized pieces. As you've probably seen, and haven't been real good about filming this as I've been going through the process, but I've been sanding and prepping the teak work up top. I've already sanded it all down to teak, but I did that a month ago or so, so I had to get it kind of cleaned up over the last week or so. And I went ahead and put the Awlwood MA primer down. I've got it on the tow rails all the way up forward of the boat. On the port side, on the starboard side, it goes to about the boarding area, and I do not have it around the cap rail and tow rails around the back. I just did this one section over here. The reason is the fabrication guys are working out here, and I don't want to slow them down. But honestly, in the last 4 days, they spent 30 minutes or so on the boat. That's about it. I'm almost tempted if they don't make progress today, tomorrow morning I'm coming in and I'm pulling that stainless off of there that I have taped on the cap rail, and I'm putting the coats down because I've got to get a couple of coats of this Awlwood MA on there. Beautiful looking morning as the sun's getting ready to rise. You can see it certainly lighting up the buildings. And like the forecast every day, I can see these clouds sort of billowing out in the background. If I get a coat on now, in 4 or 5 hours before it rains, we'll be good. I need to make a call to AkzoNobel today, who is the manufacturer of Allgrip or Awlwood MA, and ask what the consequence is if I wait more than 24 hours between primer and actual finish. So I'm going to put it on this section up here that I just did yesterday. The section I did 2 days ago back there. If AkzoNobel says that that's not the appropriate way to do it, I need to put another coat of primer on, then I'm going to do that. The reason I'm being really cautious about this is one of the things I love about this particular finish is the primer. It kind of soaks in and adheres to the wood, and then it creates a chemical bond between it and the clear gloss that goes on top of it. So we shall see how this works and let you know what they say. Yeah, son of a bitch. I guess I'm not going to be putting a coat of Awlwood MA on this morning. You do something that's just stupid. Well, I just drove 55 minutes from the North Shore down to the South Shore and realized I left the Awlwood Clear Gloss back in my shop where I did the boom. I guess I'll do a light scuffing and sanding, and well, that was a good 2-hour drive here for 15 minutes worth of scuffing. Ugh. Stupid. I'm just giving this a nice light scan. This is just the primer. All I'm doing is trying to smooth down some of the high spots here. I'm not looking to to rub the finish completely off of here. Scuff it up real nice, give a good spot for the next coat to adhere to. I still can't believe I forgot the damn gloss.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Well, that's good news. If you see that, that are all the fuel lines, and they are getting ready to get put in. So exciting stuff.
But I figured I would leave you with this. I'm heading over Lake Pontchartrain, heading back up to the North Shore. The sun is popping up, and it is a good morning.
Now look at here. We've got some fuel lines going in. They're starting. There's some down there in the lower salon for the day tank and the generator. Still more to go, but we're getting there. All right, got the first coat of Awlwood MA up on the toe rails. First coat never looks great, but it certainly has a nice shine to it compared to the primer. And up this side we go. Well, good Saturday morning, everybody. Back down at the boat, and I wanted to show you a little bit of the challenge I've had with this Awlwood MA. And I shouldn't say it's a challenge as in it's a product issue. It was absolutely an application issue. It looked like it was going to rain all week this week. There was a chance of it. I wanted to try and get something done, so I came down here. I don't remember the day of the week, so I might get this wrong. Let's just say it was Wednesday. I came down Wednesday morning, and I did about a 6-foot section of primer. So on the bare teak, I added primer. About a 6-foot section, spindles, cap rail, toe rail. That's all I got done that morning. I had to head to work. Didn't want to do it in the afternoon. It looked like it was going to rain to continue. So the next morning, let's call it Thursday morning, I came back down to the boat, and I did from the spot I had left off, and I did the toe rails all the way up the port side and almost all the way down the starboard side. Great, okay. So tomorrow I'll finish the last section, kind of around the starboard aft side of the boat, and I'll finish putting primer down. And it dawned on me that their instructions say you should put the clear over the primer within 24 hours. And I wonder how critical that really is. So I called Axo Nobel, the manufacturer of the All Grip Awlwood products, and the gentleman actually said, you know, it really does need to go on within 24 hours. And I said, well, what would be the consequence of not doing it? Can I just add another coat of primer on top of it? And he said, no, you can't add primer to it. It won't chemically adhere. What you really need to do is sand it back down to bare wood. So that immediately meant that yesterday I had to put clear gloss over all the stuff I had done within 24 hours, so I didn't have to resand that down to bare wood. And that's what I did yesterday. This morning I'm now coming back. I'm going to take the primer off of that small section that is now 3 days old and didn't have clear gloss put on top of it. Once that's done, I'll reapply primer, and I'll be able to put another coat of finish over it either later today or tomorrow morning. So that is the order of the day. It's fixing mistakes, but I'm glad I found out now rather than a year from now when the finish started falling apart and I was saying the product wasn't good, right? And it had nothing to do with the product. It was all in the application. So let's get to work. I'll show you what this looks like. See what, we have a nice little sunrise coming up this morning. Looking good. Here's how we're looking this morning. This is the finished product from yesterday. I'll show you this section where I was talking about, where the primer is. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go around the other side. It'll be easier to show it. And there's how she looks. I think I'm actually going to leave the bow pulpit unfinished up there so it doesn't get too slippery when it's wet. Looking good as we go down the toe rails. That's one coat of clear. So I'll kind of show you. You can see here it's all raw teak. I'm going to get some primer on back here, I'm hoping today. But on this side is the section that is now older than 24 hours, this small dark section that's raised. And I'm going to have to sand that down to something very close to bare wood, so I can go ahead and get this primer to again soak into the wood, which is what creates the chemical bond between the primer and the top coat. Alright, so I have sanded down this section, and oh look, I see a pretty good sized fish. So I went ahead and sanded this. I did 80 and 120 grit. Interestingly enough, the Awlwood primer recommends not going any finer than 120 grit as you prepare the surface for the prime coating. So this part's done. I thought about taking the hose and rinsing all the sawdust off the deck, but I think I'm just going to sort of brush the heavier stuff off of here and just leave it as is. That way I don't have to wait for it to essentially dry from the water. This will let me at least get a coat of primer on. I'm thinking if I get a coat of primer on right now and then put a coat of clear along the front, I should be in a pretty good position to run to the store, grab another brush, and be able to put my first coat of clear over the primer in the back here. If it's not quite dry, I'll go down below. I have some work I want to do examining the area where I've removed all of the house bank batteries. I'm actually really concerned. I'm afraid the floor may need to be replaced inside of the galley seats where the battery locations were. We'll see. That one's not critical for now. And I think I'll get started. It's interesting. I do this sanding and then I get my glasses and I'm trying to find a clean spot on my shirt to wipe my glasses off, and you know, already after an hour and a half of morning sun, it's barely up. It's already blazing hot, and I'm sweat through my entire shirt. Which, by the way, when you're sweaty and then sawdust goes on it, you just look like a dirtbag. But that's the way I look as I run into the store today to pick up some supplies. Oh well.
I decided to take advantage of the fact that there weren't a lot of people in the yard today and kind of adjust the boat so I could get the bowsprit out over the dock and begin to sand the bowsprit again. It's been a nice way to be able to do work on this and not have to do it from standing on top of a small step ladder inside of the dinghy. So this certainly made it a little bit easier doing this with the air sander and essentially just going over the parts I've already done before as a way to get it back down to bare teak and prepare it also for the Awlwood finish. This was certainly an interesting exercise. The boat was moving around a little too much, so I actually tied a line from the steps on the building over to the front of the boat. And you can see I'm doing a little bit of dolphin striker tight roping here, where I'm actually standing on the cable that holds the bowsprit up as a way to get to the other side and do the sanding. It was a little bit acrobatic, I guess.
So I don't do this all that fancy, quite honestly. I've got my Awlwood primer. I like to use little mason jars. They're inexpensive. They clean out. You can reuse one 10 times before it's so gunky I just throw the thing away. I've used plastic cups too, little Dixie cups if you will. But I just pour a little bit in there, and I'm actually using foam brushes for this because they work really well on the spindles. It let me sort of smoosh it into all the scroll work of the spindles and really get a good coating there. Worst part of this is when it's warm, I'm using these 7mm nitrile gloves. They're great for epoxy, not great for varnish, just because my hands sweat in them. So I'll start varnishing up like this, and all of a sudden water drips out of them. All right, gloves are on. I've used up that little bit that was in the jar. I didn't get a whole lot done. That section I sanded earlier, that about 6-foot section, I probably did about twice that much. Let me kind of show you what that looks like and what else I've done here. So you can see there, that's about the section that I sanded back down to bare wood, and I've come all the way over to this section of the cockpit. This is right where I ran out, but I also have now removed the bimini frame so I can pull it inbound a little bit. I have it sitting on a couple blocks of wood and tied forward via line up to the mizzen mast just to hold it out of the way while I put this coat on. So I'll get a little bit more material and I'll kind of keep working down this port side aft across the back of the cockpit, and then start working my way forward up the starboard side right here by this main starboard jib sheet winch, and we'll go ahead and get this primed all the way up to ahead of the boarding area. We'll prime it right up to where we put the gloss on yesterday.